Maybe we won't. Hey, there we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another of the Daily Edge, where you get your daily dose of news and a little bit of motivation. So let's jump right into it. What's going on in the world today? Hello, Gemini.
It is now 10:01 a.m. Central Standard Time, and here is a brief, updated summary of the most significant federal and world news today, Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. Federal and world news at a glance. Category: Headline: Key detail. Federal shutdown. Longest ever shutdown continues. The U.S. government shutdown has passed 36 days.
Okay.
Democratic leaders are demanding a meeting with the president this morning to end the impasse and address expiring ACA health subsidies. Federal Supreme Court. Tariff power challenged. The Supreme Court is currently holding oral arguments over the president's use of emergency powers, i.e. EPA, to impose sweeping tariffs.
All right.
Justices are questioning whether the law grants him this authority. Federal impact. Crisis for aid programs. Head Start programs in 18 states and Puerto Rico have been forced to close due to missed funding, leaving nearly 10,000 children without services. The CBO estimates the national economy could lose up to $14 billion. World climate. EU sets major 2040 goal. The European Union has agreed to a target of cutting carbon emissions by 90% by 2040.
Okay.
The deal, however, allows for some reliance on international carbon credits to meet the full target. World conflict. Sudan's civil war spiraling. The UN Secretary General warned that the conflict in Sudan is spiraling out of control. Fighting is intensifying, with nearly 71,000 people recently displaced following fighting in El Fasher. Which of these stories, the shutdown, ACA debate, the Supreme Court tariff case, or the Sudan EU world news, should we focus on next? For the Sudan EU world news,
should we focus on next? Or the I thought you were gonna do it again. All right. Well, shutdown's still going on. We got some elections going on. Let's start with the shutdown, and then we'll go into some election stuff. Yeah, let's dig a little deeper in the shutdown. Anything new with the shutdown today?
I would be happy to dig deeper into the shutdown. The newest developments today, Wednesday, November 5th, 2025, focus on the intensifying impact on social programs and a fresh political attempt to break the 36-day deadlock. Shutdown deep dive, day 36. 1. The sticking point, ACA health subsidies. The fundamental reason the government remains closed has not changed. Democratic demand. Democrats are refusing to pass a short-term funding bill until it includes an extension of the Expanded Affordable Care Act, ACA, premium tax credits. These credits are set to expire at the end of the year, which would cause premiums for millions of Americans to jump by an estimated 26%. Republican stance. Republicans are demanding that the government be reopened first, arguing they will not negotiate over healthcare spending while agencies are shuttered. 2. Negotiations and political pressure. New meeting request. Top Democrats in both the House and Senate sent a letter this morning requesting an immediate face-to-face meeting with the president to negotiate an end to the shutdown and address the healthcare crisis. Bipartisan effort. A small group of moderate senators is working to craft a deal. Their framework involves passing several full-year appropriations bills now, along with a short-term bill to reopen the rest of the government in exchange for a Republican commitment to hold a vote on the ACA subsidies on a specific date. This proposal is gaining traction among some centrist Democrats. Presidential push. The president, who has largely stayed out of direct negotiations, urged Senate Republicans during a White House breakfast this morning to end the filibuster to pass a funding bill without Democratic votes, though Senate GOP leadership has consistently resisted this call. 3. Worsening effects on Americans. The most critical new impacts are hitting aid programs. Head Start closures. Due to missed funding that was due November 1st, 18 states and Puerto Rico have seen Head Start centers close their doors. This leaves nearly 10,000 low-income children without essential childcare, education, and nutrition services. SNAP uncertainty. Federal funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, ran out over the weekend. Although courts have ordered the administration to use contingency funds, the administration plans to provide only partial payments to states for November, putting food aid for millions of Americans at risk. Travel warning. The Transportation Secretary warned that if the shutdown extends beyond this week, the increasing absenteeism among unpaid air traffic controllers and TSA officers could lead to mass chaos, including significant flight delays and potential airspace closures, just ahead of the busy Thanksgiving travel season. Would you like to focus on the political maneuvering in the Senate, the impact on aid programs like SNAP and Head Start, or the Supreme Court tariff case next?
I wanted to see if was Minnesota one of the 18 states? I'm just curious if our...
That's an excellent and very specific question, especially given your location. While Head Start programs in Minnesota were immediately at risk and faced a funding cliff on November 1st, the state took action to prevent them from becoming one of the closure statistics.
Good.
Here's the situation for Minnesota. At-risk status. 4 Head Start providers in Minnesota, collectively serving about 1,300 children, were due to receive their annual federal grant renewal on November 1st and would have had to close without it. The state stepped in. The state of Minnesota authorized the accelerated use of state-allocated Head Start dollars to serve as a temporary stopgap fund. This action allowed those at-risk programs to remain open and continue providing services, at least for the short term. The difference. Because of this state intervention, Minnesota programs have, so far, avoided immediate closures and are not currently included in the count of the 18 states where Head Start sites have been forced to shut down. In summary, Minnesota programs were threatened but found a temporary way to stay open, unlike the sites in the 18 states that have now closed. Would you like to hear more about the specific political solution being discussed in the Senate to end the shutdown, or move on to the Supreme Court tariff case?
Supreme Court tariff, no. What about the elections? Isn't there a bunch of elections going on?
Yes, absolutely. Election Day was yesterday, Tuesday, November 4th, and the results are being viewed as a significant referendum on the current political environment and the ongoing shutdown. It was an overall strong night for Democrats in the major races, which political analysts are interpreting as a reflection of voter discontent with the Republican unified government and the prolonged shutdown. Here are the key takeaways from the 2025 off-year elections. Key election results, November 2025. Race, state/city, winner, significance, governor, Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, D. Flipped the governorship for the Democrats. Virginia has a large concentration of federal workers directly impacted by the government shutdown. Governor, New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, D. Held the governorship for the Democrats, defying the typical trend of the sitting president's party losing off-year gubernatorial races. Mayor, New York City, Zohran Mamdani, D. Progressive. A high-profile win for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party over a more moderate independent, showing energy among the Democratic base. Ballot measure, California, Proposition 50 passes. Approves a measure to redraw congressional maps that is expected to favor Democrats in next year's midterm elections. Direct link to the shutdown. The elections immediately injected new political pressure into the shutdown negotiations. Voter sentiment. The decisive Democratic victories, particularly the flipping of the governorship in Virginia, are being cited by both parties as evidence that the public is unhappy with the political gridlock and the shutdown's economic pain. Democratic leverage. These results have emboldened Democrats in the Senate to continue holding firm on their demand to include the ACA health insurance subsidies in any government funding bill. GOP scrutiny. The election losses put pressure on Republican leaders to find a compromise, with some saying the shutdown was a major factor in the results. The current political spotlight is now intense, with many hoping these results will force a breakthrough in the funding negotiations soon. Would you like to know more about the specific impact these results might have on the current shutdown negotiations? Or move on to the Supreme Court tariff case?
You really want to tell me about the Supreme Court tariff case. So we're going to let, tell me about the Supreme Court case. We're going to let Gemini, give me the information that they want to give me.
That's the third major piece of breaking news right now. The Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments in a landmark case that could redefine presidential power over the economy. The case, which is a consolidation of lawsuits, is challenging the president's ability to impose massive, sweeping tariffs on imports by declaring a national emergency. The Supreme Court tariff showdown. Detail. Description. Case names. Learning resources. Inc. versus Trump. Consolidated with other challenges. Status. Oral arguments are being heard today, Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. What is at stake? The fate of billions of dollars in tariffs already collected, and the future use of tariffs as a core tool of U.S. economic and foreign policy. The core question: does the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, which gives the president power to regulate importation during an emergency, also give the president the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs, taxes? The constitutional conflict. This case is fundamentally a separation of powers issue.
Okay.
Challengers' argument: businesses/states. They argue that the Constitution grants the power to impose taxes and tariffs solely to Congress. Since the IEEPA law does not explicitly mention tariffs or taxes, the president is overstepping his authority. They say a lower court has already found this use of emergency powers to be illegal. Administration's argument. The administration contends that the power to regulate imports, especially during a declared national emergency, includes the power to impose duties, tariffs, and that Congress intended the president to have broad, flexible power in foreign policy. The Supreme Court's ruling will be a huge test of how much power the judiciary will grant to the president regarding executive actions on trade. Would you like to know more about the financial impact of these tariffs? Or would you prefer a summary of the latest on the government shutdown?
No. Let's hear a little more about, actually, let's get into the Philippine death toll from hurricane or tropical storm, whatever it was.
That is a serious situation.
Yes.
The Philippines has been struck by Typhoon Kalmegi, locally known as Tino, which has caused widespread devastation and a climbing casualty count across the Central Islands. Here is the latest information on the situation. Typhoon Kalmegi toll and impact. Current death toll. The reported death toll has risen sharply and is now over 90 people as of today, Wednesday. This count is based on information coming from local and national disaster officials as rescue operations continue. Missing persons. At least 26 people are reported missing. Hardest hit area. Most of the casualties, particularly drownings, have occurred in Cebu province, where flash floods were described as the worst in recent memory. Cebu was already vulnerable.
So I was like, why, okay, so this typhoon hit the Philippines and killed like 90 some people, with at least 26 missing. But a Category 5 hurricane hits like, what was it, like Cuba, a couple other places down there. And I think the death toll was really, fairly low for the biggest hurricane to ever hit land. But I didn't realize these guys got hit by a 6.2 or something earthquake, like 6.9, like a month ago.
As it was still recovering from a deadly 6.9 magnitude earthquake that struck in September. Cause of deaths. The majority of the victims died from drowning due to unprecedented flash floods, as well as from landslides and falling debris. Military
And they're
crash.
about to hit winter.
The death toll also includes 6 Philippine Air Force personnel whose helicopter crashed on the island of Mindanao while they were en route to deliver humanitarian aid to storm-battered provinces. Evacuations. Over 387,000 residents had been preemptively evacuated to safer areas ahead of the storm's landfall, which helped save countless lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Typhoon Kalmegi is the 20th storm to hit the Philippines this year. It is now weakening as it moves into the South China Sea, heading toward Vietnam. Would you like to know more about the relief and recovery efforts currently underway, or should we return to the Supreme Court tariff case?
No, let's dig into, they need stuff for winter, I'm assuming.
That's an important distinction to make. While the Philippines does not experience a Western-style winter, the primary need following this kind of extreme flooding is for immediate, life-sustaining items and protection from the elements. As countless homes have been destroyed, the relief efforts are focused on providing essentials, especially since many affected areas in Cebu were already recovering from a major earthquake. Key immediate needs for Typhoon Kalmegi survivors. The most critical items being requested by relief organizations include clean water and food, Drinking water, clean, potable sources are compromised by floodwaters. Ready-to-eat food, canned goods, instant noodles, rice, that does not require cooking. Shelter and protection. Temporary shelter materials like tarpaulins and tents, as many homes are partially or completely destroyed.
Okay.
Blankets and sleeping mats for use in crowded evacuation centers. Dry clothing and clean sets of essential garments.
So if you can,
Health and hygiene. Hygiene kits.
send the Philippines some shit.
Soap, toothbrushes, toothpaste, sanitary pads, alcohol/sanitizer to prevent the spread of waterborne diseases. Basic medicines and first aid supplies. How to provide the most effective aid. Major humanitarian organizations on the ground, such as the Philippine Red Cross and Care Philippines, consistently highlight that cash donations are the most efficient way to help. Why cash is preferred. 1. Speed.
Because everybody wants cash.
It allows organizations to immediately purchase specific supplies locally that are in short supply. 2. Flexibility. It avoids logistical headaches and high costs associated with shipping in-kind goods from abroad. 3. Local economy. It supports local markets and businesses, aiding in the community's economic recovery. Would you like the contact and donation information for a few reputable organizations like the Philippine Red Cross or World Central Kitchen that are actively involved?
Sure. I would donate to the World Central Kitchen. Yes. Now you don't want to work. I would have trouble just sending the Philippines. Who knows who's getting the fucking money for sure. But if you're, who knows, that could be a bunk business too. So directly through the website of the Philippine Red Cross, you can donate that way. Bank deposits, PRC accepted, direct deposits. Where is? Oh, there it is. The World Central Kitchen, WCK. Online donations. The most direct way to donate is through the WCK website. So look into the World Central Kitchen. That is a good place to, you rich people, you might be watching this. You might need to send money to somebody for your taxes or some stuff. I think that would be a good place to donate. I have to look into it more before I would put money into it, but maybe that's a place you guys would want to look into. All right, what else do we got today going on?
That's a great shift of focus. It's November 5th, 2025, and there's a lot of significant news, particularly on the political and international fronts. Here is a brief rundown of today's top stories.
You're going to go again?
U.S. elections and political news. Democratic gains in major elections. Democrats saw big wins in the first major elections following the presidential race. NYC mayor, Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani was elected as New York City's mayor, becoming the first person of South Asian descent and first Muslim to hold the position. Governorships. Democrats also flipped the governorships in both Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, and New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill. Longest government shutdown. The U.S. government shutdown has reached a historic length, entering its 36th day with no resolution in sight. This has severely impacted federal workers and is forecast to have a major economic cost. International and global news. Sudan crisis escalates. The UN Secretary General has warned that the civil war in Sudan is spiraling out of control, with increasing displacement and reports of mass graves being dug by the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, paramilitary.
We'll get into this.
Afghanistan earthquake. A powerful magnitude 6.3 earthquake hit northern Afghanistan, resulting in at least 20 deaths and nearly 1,000 injuries. Rescue operations are complicated by the difficult terrain and the approaching winter. Japan-China military talks. A group of Japanese Self-Defense Forces personnel began an exchange visit to China, following a recent agreement between the leaders of both nations to improve crisis management and communication between their defense authorities. Business and tech. Amazon OpenAI partnership. Amazon and OpenAI have announced a major multi-billion-dollar deal to boost Amazon's AI strategy and cloud platforms. Is there a specific topic?
Well,
perhaps the U.S. elections, the Sudan conflict, or the Amazon deal you'd like to dig into further?
I'd like to dig into the Sudan crisis a little bit. After that, we'll jump into some local stuff.
That's a very important topic
keep
to
the
focus
coffee
on.
flowing.
The situation in Sudan has been called the world's largest displacement crisis, and as the UN Secretary General recently stated, the war is spiraling out of control. Here is a summary of the key elements driving the escalation. The Sudan Civil War, key factions, and escalation. The current conflict, which began in April 2023, is fundamentally a power struggle between the two main military factions that seized power in the 2021 coup. Faction, leader, key figure, base/control.
Okay.
Background, Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, de facto head of state, controls the east, including Port Sudan, the country's main port, and recently recaptured much of the capital, Khartoum. Sudan's regular army. Rapid Support Forces, RSF, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemeti, controls large areas of the west, particularly Darfur, and much of the agricultural heartland. A powerful paramilitary group that evolved from the notorious Janjaweed militias in Darfur. Drivers of the recent escalation: 1. Struggle for El Fasher. The RSF's recent seizure of the army base in El Fasher, a crucial city and the last stronghold of the SAF in the vast Darfur region, is a major turning point. This victory has pushed the country closer to a de facto partition. 2. Foreign involvement. The UN and other bodies are highly concerned about weapons continually flowing into Sudan, which fuels the conflict. The US has specifically urged countries to stop supplying arms,
what do you expect?
Warning that a new genocide could be repeating in Darfur. 3. Targeting of civilians. Both sides have been accused of indiscriminate attacks, sexual violence, and other war crimes. The recent capture of El Fasher has been followed by reports of mass killings, and the RSF digging mass graves to clean up the evidence. Humanitarian catastrophe, displacement crisis. Over 12 million people have been forced from their homes, making it the world's largest and fastest growing displacement crisis. Famine. Famine has been declared in several areas, including the besieged El Fasher and an IDP, internally displaced persons camp in Darfur. Access for aid is extremely limited, with a confluence of violence and logistical obstacles making delivery nearly impossible. Healthcare collapse. An estimated 70 to 80% of health facilities in conflict-affected regions are non-functional, leaving the vast majority of civilians without access to medical care. That gives you a concise overview of the critical factors and the devastating human cost. You mentioned wanting to jump into some local stuff next?
Yeah.
What is your local area so I can pull up relevant news?
Martin County, Minnesota. Martin County, Minnesota. Hold on. When I'm getting messages, it doesn't. Martin County, Minnesota. It doesn't want to listen to me. Of course. See if this top Martin County news, EDA layout, priorities, Martin County authorities, EDA, view 25 and 26. Okay. Yeah, that looks like the right stuff. Of course. What do we got? So we had the. I'm going to get to the school referendum. That failed. The Fairmont area.
Of course. Here's a brief look at the latest news and activities from Martin County, Minnesota, with a focus on Fairmont. Top Martin County news. EDA lays out priorities. The Martin County Economic Development Authority, MCEDA, reviewed its 2025 accomplishments and discussed the plan for 2026.
Right.
Key focuses include continuing to advance broadband initiatives across the county, working to increase childcare spots with a focus on a project at Lakeview Methodist Healthcare Center, researching funding options for a local housing trust fund. School referendum fails. The Fairmont area school's $21.7 million building bond referendum was unsuccessful. It would have funded improvements to school sites, including an addition to the Fine Arts Center and security/infrastructure upgrades. Property tax notices. Residents are being advised that the Martin County Assessor's Office can help with understanding the upcoming truth in taxation notices, which provide an estimate of property taxes based on preliminary rates. Local recognition: Fairmont High School graduate Lincoln Becker recently received the prestigious American FFA degree. Local events and activities.
Good job.
Fairmont area. Since today is Wednesday, November 5th, here are a couple of library-based events happening soon. Tomorrow, Thursday, November 6th, 9:30 a.m. Cuddle Buddies, Fairmont Library.
What the hell is that?
6 p.m. Pollinators of MN, Fairmont Library. Ongoing/next week, the Martin County Library has a calendar full of activities, including mini Mondays, play cafes, and various club meetings. Would you like more details on the EDA's priorities or the outcome of the school referendum?
Well, the referendum, they didn't get what they wanted, but the money that they do have is going to go towards fixing some shit. And like other new schools going up, MCW, I think, is getting a new school or something. Isn't MCW getting a new school or something like that? See if I can find that. Oh, it says MTW.
That's right. There was a major vote regarding the Martin County West MCW school district building. The voters in the Martin County West School District did approve a bond to construct a new school. What passed? A $64.7 million bond referendum was approved by a slim margin in a special election in May 2024. The project. This funding is for the construction of a new pre-K through 12th grade school building, which will be located in Sherburne. The plan is to consolidate all students onto one campus and demolish the existing aging buildings. What failed? A second question on the ballot for an additional $2.04 million for an auxiliary gym was voted down. The district held a groundbreaking ceremony back in May 2025, and construction is currently underway, with a projected opening for the 2027-2028 school year. This was the second attempt at the bond, as a similar, slightly smaller proposal failed in November 2023.
Okay. Well, let's rock that 7-day forecast. What's it looking like the next 7 days? Let's figure it out. It's supposed to cool off and then warm back up, which is, why not? What do we got here?
That's an accurate trend you spotted. The forecast for Martin County/Fairmont shows a quick return to mild temperatures before a significant and sudden drop this weekend, bringing the first signs of winter weather. Here is the 7-day forecast.
Okay, so we got Wednesday, highs 53, Thursday 54, Friday we got 52, Saturday's 35, and then Sunday's going to be cold with a 29. But then we got Monday, it's going to warm back up a little bit at 34, and Tuesday up to 46. Yeah, so it plunges nearly 20 degrees. Crazy. Why don't you recap what we went through today and say your goodbyes there, Gemini? AI. Fun stuff.
Hello. I would be happy to recap our conversation today and say my goodbyes. Today's conversation recap. We covered two main topics. 1. Martin County West MCW school building. You asked about the new school. I confirmed that the voters in the Martin County West School District approved a $64.7 million bond in May 2024 to build a new pre-K-12 school in Sherburne. The project is currently underway, with a projected opening for the 2027-2028 school year. 2. 7-day weather forecast. We discussed the local weather trend for Martin County/Fairmont. I provided a 7-day forecast showing that after a mild start, highs in the low 50s, a significant cool down is expected this weekend, with temperatures dropping into the 20s and a chance of rain and snow starting on Saturday. It was great assisting you today. If you have any other questions, need more forecasts, or want to discuss strategies for making better YouTube thumbnails, I remember your key elements. Feel free to reach out anytime. Okay. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Well, that's it. Thanks for coming, guys. It's just a little bit of the news that's going on today. Obviously, if you ever got any questions, put them down in the comments. Other than that, I'll see you tomorrow with another one of your Daily Edge. Daily Edge. Stay on the edge.